All right, ready to dive into some ancient wisdom.
Let's do it.
Today we're tackling friendship, a topic we can all relate to.
Oh, absolutely timeless, right?
And we're going all the way back to Plato's Lysis for some surprising insights.
Plato, always good for a mind-bending conversation.
So imagine yourself in ancient Athens, a bustling palestra like a combination gym and social club, and that's where we find Socrates.
Always stirring up thought-provoking discussions wherever he goes.
And in this setting, we meet a cast of characters that really bring this dialogue to life.
Oh, they are quite a bunch, right?
We've got Hippothalys, completely smitten with a young man named Lysis.
Head over heels, you could say. And Lysis, known for his beauty and virtue.
And then there's Menexenus, Lysis's close friend, and Ctesippus, who loves to poke fun at Hippothalys' attempts to woo Lysis.
Oh yeah, Ctesippus is always up for a good laugh.
I mean, composing poems about Lysis's family's wealth, that doesn't seem like the best way to win someone's heart.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
It's like, Hippothalys, come on.
Right. But you know, Socrates picks up on something really interesting here.
Oh, what is that?
He observes that wise lovers, they don't just lavish praise on their beloved before winning them over. It can be a bit off-putting, you know?
That's a really good point. Like, are you genuinely interested in me or just trying to impress me with your fancy words?
Exactly. It makes you wonder, is Hippothalys truly in love with Lysis, or just the idea of him?
That's deep. And then Socrates, always the philosopher, steps in, takes a totally different approach.
Of course he does.
Instead of flattery, he engages Lysis and Menexenus in a conversation that really challenges their assumptions about what friendship is all about.
Always getting down to the core of things, that's Socrates.
And he does this by using a surprisingly relatable example. He brings up the fact that even though Lysis's parents love him, they still put all sorts of restrictions on his freedom.
The classic parental dilemma. Love them, but set boundaries.
I have to admit, when I first read that part, I was kind of confused. I was like, wait, what does this have to do with friendship? But then I saw where Socrates was going with it.
Yeah, he's got a way of weaving these seemingly unrelated things together to make a profound point.
So he uses this everyday example of parental restrictions to highlight a deeper truth. Adults, they only trust young people with things they understand.
It makes sense, right? You wouldn't hand over the car keys if you didn't think they knew how to drive.
And Socrates implies that this applies to friendship too. You need to understand it to truly have it.
To have meaningful friendships, we need to grasp what it actually means to be a friend.
So to have true friends, we need to understand what friendship is. Okay, starting to see why Socrates is considered such a wise guy. But that raises the question, how do we even begin to understand something as complex as friendship?
Well, Socrates tackles a common belief at the time, the idea that like attracts like. The idea being that people with similar qualities, interests, backgrounds, they're naturally drawn to each other.
Oh yeah, birds of a feather flock together. We've all heard that.
Exactly. This idea was widespread, not just among everyday people, but also philosophers and poets.
So it makes sense, right? We tend to gravitate towards people who are like us.
Sure, but Socrates, he throws a curveball.
Yeah.
He asks, wouldn't like be useless to like?
Oh, I like where this is going.
Right. If two people are exactly the same, how can they truly benefit each other? How can they learn and grow together if they already share all the same perspectives?
It's like having two identical puzzle pieces. They fit perfectly together, but you're not creating anything new, so maybe it's opposites attract then. A better explanation for friendship.
That's the next theory they explore. And it leads to some really fun back-and-forth banter. Socrates, though, challenges this idea too. He points out that if opposites truly attract, then love and hate should be the best of friends.
Okay, that's definitely not how it works. So we've ruled out like attracts like and opposites attract. What's left? Is there some secret formula for friendship that we're missing?
Well, Socrates throws out another idea, almost playfully. He suggests that maybe beauty is the foundation of friendship.
Beauty. Interesting.
After all, beauty has this way of captivating us, drawing us in. And he goes so far as to say that the good is the beautiful.
That's an intriguing thought. But knowing Socrates, I bet he's not going to let them settle for such a simple answer.
You know Socrates, always pushing for deeper understanding.
So where does this lead them?
Down a rabbit hole, discussing the very nature of good and evil, and whether something neutral, neither good nor evil, could be a true friend to someone who is good.
Okay, things are getting pretty philosophical now.
Right. And then they start considering a very intriguing idea that maybe evil is actually necessary for friendship.
Wait, hold on. Evil is necessary for friendship. How does that work?
The thought is, if there were no evil, would we even desire anything? Would we even need friends?
So, friendship only exists because evil exists. That's a pretty bleak outlook.
It seems that way, but then Socrates, he starts expressing doubts. He
Uh-huh.
compares their line of reasoning to a hunter who's captured only a shadow, not the real prey.
So even he's starting to think they're on the wrong track.
Exactly. And, Lysis is there for all of this, right?
Right, Lysis, the young man at the center of all this. What's his take on this philosophical debate?
Lysis, despite his youth, he seems to sense this shift in Socrates. It's almost like Plato, the author. He's giving us a little nudge, a hint that the answer to what constitutes true friendship isn't going to be so straightforward.
Back to square one then. All that discussion, and they're no closer to figuring out what friendship really is.
Well, not quite back to square one, but definitely at a crossroads. They circle back to this idea of desire, proposing that maybe what we desire is what is congenial to us, and perhaps that holds a key to true friendship.
Congenial, that's an interesting word choice. It's not quite the same as just being alike, is it?
You're picking up on something crucial there. Congenial suggests a deeper harmony, a natural affinity that goes beyond just having similar hobbies or interests.
So are they about to unlock the mystery of friendship with this congeniality idea?
Just as they're getting to the good part.
Uh-oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, you guessed it, they get interrupted. Picture this. The tutors of Lysis and Menexenus, they arrive looking like the fun police, dragging the boys away because it's getting late.
Oh no. Talk about bad timing. So no grand revelation about friendship in this dialogue.
Well, not exactly. Socrates humorously laments that they, three boys of different ages, still haven't figured out what friendship truly is.
So we're left with a cliffhanger. What is the true nature of friendship? Could this congeniality be the answer? And what does any of this have to do with us, thousands of years later? We'll have to delve further into the Lysis to find out. So we're left with this idea of congeniality hanging in the air. It seems like a step in the right direction, but I'm still a bit fuzzy on what it actually means.
Plato certainly knew how to leave us wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's part of what makes his work so engaging. He wants us to keep thinking, to keep those wheels turning.
You're so right. And speaking of keeping things turning, what exactly does this congeniality thing entail? It's not just about having things in common, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It goes deeper than that. It's about a harmony of spirits, a resonance that connects people beyond just surface-level similarities.
Okay, so instead of looking for friends who are just like me, I should be open to people who bring something different to the table. People who can, challenge my perspectives and make me think in new ways.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our differences can actually enrich our friendships. Think about it. When you look at your closest friends, what draws you to them? Is it just shared hobbies or backgrounds? Or is there something more?
Now that you mention it, some of my most meaningful friendships are with people who are pretty different from me. We have those moments where we challenge each other's viewpoints, but there's still this underlying sense of connection.
That's it. That's that congeniality in action, is finding those people who complement you, who help you grow and expand your horizons.
This makes me think about how disagreements can actually be a good thing for a friendship. Not in a nasty way, of course, but those healthy debates where you really push each other to think critically.
That's a really interesting point. We often shy away from conflict.
Yeah.
But what if embracing those moments of friction in a respectful way could actually lead to deeper understanding?
It's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? We usually think of arguments as a bad sign in a relationship.
We're conditioned to avoid conflict. But those disagreements, those can be a sign of a strong bond. It's about being able to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable.
Like you're not afraid to say what's on your mind, even if it leads to a bit of a heated discussion.
Exactly. It's that honesty, that willingness to challenge each other that allows the friendship to evolve.
I like that. It's about being your true self, even if it means rocking the boat sometimes. But before we get too carried away with this congeniality thing, remember Socrates? He left us with that lingering doubt, right?
Yes. Always keeping us on our toes.
So is there something more to friendship than even congeniality? Have we missed a crucial piece of the puzzle?
I think Plato is being very intentional here. He's not giving us a simple answer, a one-size-fits-all definition, but he's giving us a framework for thinking about friendship in all its complexity.
So there's not just one right answer. What makes a good friend might change depending on the context, right?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that friendships are dynamic, they're always evolving.
So we can't just coast on autopilot once we've reached friend status. We need to put in the effort, nurture the relationship, be open to change.
You got it. That's what keeps things interesting.
This whole conversation is making me rethink my approach to friendship. I got to be more present,
Yeah.
more intentional in my interactions.
And that's a great takeaway from the Lysis. It's a reminder that friendship is a journey, not a destination.
And like any good journey, it's bound to have its ups and downs. But that's what makes it all worthwhile, right?
Absolutely. It's those twists and turns that shape us, that help us grow, that make the journey so unique.
I'm starting to understand why Socrates loved those deep philosophical conversations. They really make you think about your relationships in a whole new light.
They force us to question our assumptions, to dig a little deeper.
So what would you say is the main thing our listeners should take away from this part of our deep dive?
I think the Lysis encourages us to be curious about our friendships, to embrace the differences that make them unique, and to remember that those relationships, they're constantly evolving.
It's not about finding the perfect friend or the perfect friendship. It's about appreciating the journey and all its complexities. It's amazing how relevant this ancient text still is, thousands of years later. It's like Plato was onto something really fundamental about human nature.
Yeah, it really is. These questions about friendship, they just keep coming up, don't they? We're still trying to figure it all out. What makes these bonds so special, so tricky sometimes?
I think what's so cool about the Lysis is that it doesn't give us easy answers, does it? It leaves us with more questions than answers.
Absolutely. It's more like it sparks a conversation than lays down the wall. But that's what makes it so valuable, gets you thinking for yourself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Lysis, I thought it might be fun to flip things around a bit. We've talked about what friendship is, but how about what it isn't, T?
Ooh, I like that. Let's bust some myths about friendship.
Exactly, because there are so many misconceptions out there that can really mess us up, right? Like, for example, I think one of the biggest ones is this idea that friendship should be effortless.
Oh, I hear that one all the time.
Yeah.
We see these perfect friendships in movies and on TV shows. Everyone just clicks instantly, and there's never any drama.
It's like, come on, that's not real life.
Definitely not. Real friendships, they take work, right? They need effort, communication. You got to be willing to be vulnerable. It's about showing up for each other, even when it's inconvenient.
Yeah, it's like any relationship that matters. You got to put in the time and the attention.
Another big misconception, I think, is this idea that friendships should last forever. We sometimes hang on to them way past their expiration date, even when they're not healthy anymore.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Letting go can be really hard, especially if you share a lot of history with someone.
I know it's not easy,
Right.
but sometimes letting go, it's actually the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for the other person.
It makes space for new connections, doesn't it? Ones that maybe fit better with who you are now.
Exactly. We're always growing and changing as people, and our friendships need to evolve too. Sometimes that means saying goodbye, but saying goodbye with gratitude for what you've shared.
It's like the Lysis is reminding us to be open to change and growth, even in our friendships. To let go of what's no longer serving us and to embrace the new.
That's a really beautiful way to put it.
So as we close out our deep dive into the Lysis, what final piece of wisdom can we offer our listeners?
I would say this. Approach your friendships with curiosity, humility, and be ready to be surprised. Be present, be intentional, and don't be afraid to shake things up a bit.
I love that. It's not about finding that perfect friend or that perfect friendship. It's about embracing the journey with all its ups and downs. And maybe, just maybe, along the way, we'll learn a little more about what it really means to be a friend. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Plato's Lysis. And until next time, keep exploring those connections.